believe that suffering leads to salvation. In fact, it's the only way. And then we make one of two decisions. We either decide to go through the gate of resentment, which leads to vengeance, or we go through the gate of forgiveness, which leads to grace.
Known just as much for his visceral dramatic roles as he is his zany, off-the-wall comedic ones, Jim Carrey has made his way to the top of the charts by being unique and absolutely hilarious. However, one thing the celebrity is not so famous for is his philosophical musings on forgiveness, grace, and the Christian faith amongst his other religious beliefs. But it seems like all these have changed with just one encounter. What could have happened? Join us as we explore the miracle Jim Carrey witnessed inside the church in Vegas that made him immediately accept Jesus.
Would you like an ashtray?
I don't smoke. It's a disgusting habit.
Jim Carrey, finding Jesus through tragedy. Almost every celebrity has a story that connects them to the grand discovery of a new goal, a purpose, or a major decision concerning their life. And as for the movie star Jim Carrey, his story relates to his faith. Right from when he stepped into the spotlight starring in iconic films like Ace Ventura and The Mask, Jim has always had a deep sense of spiritual sensitivity and commitment to social issues. Known for his elastic mimicry and dramatic eccentricities, Jim has said some pretty out-of-the-box things when it comes to speaking about spirituality, and it has stirred up criticisms. But the part that resonates very poorly with the comedian's fans has to be the fact that his view is centered around what they believe to be his unwillingness to accept or even believe in the Christian faith. This really makes you wonder, what does Jim actually believe in? Well, let's find out. In a recent interview, Jim sat down with CBS News to talk about his spiritual journey and how he has been able to navigate the waters in regards to spirituality for years. He explained how he suffered a lot and felt completely deserted in life, and despite not being religious, he revealed a deep connection to ideas such as the gate of forgiveness, the Holy Spirit, and a quest to find God that goes beyond religion. Jim also revealed that the only true way for us to experience spiritual growth is by going through and feeling some pain, which explains why many of his films revolve around this subject. Pain, the actor believes, is a great eye-opener to the truth that has always been in front of us. And to back up his claims, Jim was kind enough to share an encounter that he believes has helped to change the narrative of Christianity and God to him. Tragedy has its way of causing a shift in a person's life, and Jim was no exception to this. As the interview with CBS News went on, Jim shared to his listeners that he believes that suffering leads to salvation, and in fact, it's the only way. He pointed out that we have to somehow accept and not deny, but feel our suffering and feel our losses. Then, after the process of acceptance was over, the next thing to do was to make one of two decisions. We firstly either decide to go through the gate of resentment, which leads to vengeance, self-harm, or harm to others, or we go through the gate of forgiveness, which leads to grace and a form of rebirth as a better person altogether. Speaking for himself, Jim confessed he had gone through the battle of suffering, accepting what had happened, and evolving from all of it to become spiritually mindful, which has helped him discover a faith unlike anything he had ever experienced. Satisfying everyone's curiosity on where this philosophy had stemmed from, Jim talked about how his girlfriend, Catriona White, had suddenly passed away from taking her own life and changed things for him. Her death stirred chaos, pain, and rage, especially in her family, and blinded by their grief, they accused the actor of the cause of her actions. The family filed a case against him and claimed he mistreated Catriona, which contributed to her damaged self-worth. Moreover, they also claimed that the actor exposed her to harmful substances and degrading environments. An incriminating note written on Catriona White's iPad 2 years before the incident, where she accused Jim of giving her herpes and introducing her to drugs, was what made the issue even more serious. The message was part of the wrongful death lawsuit brought against the actor by Cathriona's family, and it was brought to light by lawyers acting on behalf of her family. But it didn't end there. In the distraught message, Cathriona accused the actor of ruining her life, saying he gave her HSV and HPV, and she wanted him to apologize for it. She also added that she wanted him to understand that however little a thing it all seemed to him, something like that could ruin a girl's life. As if that wasn't bad enough, she further accused him of introducing her to hard drugs, a wayward lifestyle, and mental abuse. She described in more detail her state of mind. "You threw me away when you absorbed anything worthwhile that was left of me." Although it was never discovered if Cathriona had sent the note to Jim before the tragedy struck, her family were past caring about all that. The wrongful death suit filed by Mark Burton, Cathriona's ex-husband, claimed that Jim illegally obtained highly addictive and, in this case, deadly drugs under the pseudonym of Arthur King, which she later ended up misusing. Not long after, the 55-year-old actor filed a countersuit accusing them of extortion and defamation. Jim described Cathriona as a beautiful but immature and emotionally damaged woman in his lawsuit. The Ace Ventura actor repudiated the accusation that he gave her an STD, saying Cathriona contracted it before they started the relationship they had. But later on, Jim did admit that he paid her an undisclosed amount of money back in 2013 to stop Cathriona from revealing her story that she had contracted herpes from him. He also added that the reason his former girlfriend did what she did was because she was guilty about taking the money. The actor's lawyers stated in his countersuit that the Irish makeup artist had threatened to go to the press with the allegation Jim had given her STDs, but would keep silent if he gave her millions of dollars. Michael Avenatti, representing Cathriona's family, told People magazine that the note, written in Kat's own words, shows the world how Jim Carrey treated her while she was alive and the depths of his destructive behavior. Jim stood strongly on his own side of the story, backing it up with his countersuit while Cathriona's family kept pushing forward, with Avenatti leading the fight. But later in 2018, Jim won the legal battle and was declared innocent, much to the dismay of Catriona's family. Although he won the case, the actor admitted he still felt broken and empty, having been slammed so hard in the gut by her death that he wasn't himself for months. It was the darkest moment of his life, and anyone around the actor could see he was struggling so hard with the whole event that had occurred. So, in response, Jim embarked on a journey of personal reflection, which eventually led him to come to know Christ. Although Jim's belief system appears to be a complex one and something that is constantly changing, what's for certain is his deep connection to concepts like love, forgiveness, and compassion. And while the question of whether Jim Carrey would consider himself a Christian or not is hard to answer, his close proximity to teachings from Jesus Christ would suggest he has plenty in common with the Christian faith. Looking at Jim's beliefs on suffering, spiritual growth, redemption, and more, it's almost as if he's spewing out Bible verses. The words coming out of his mouth seem to be right by Jesus' teachings. It's clear that both Jim and the Savior had similar views on pain when you hear him talk about it, and this view stemmed up from his encounter with tragedy. But what was Jim Carrey's religion before he embraced Christianity? Let's delve into that next. Moving from one religion to another. Born in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada in 1962, the comedic legend Jim Carrey lived out his early years in a home that practiced traditional Christian values. It was the norm for him to wake up and go to sleep with God in mind, and in a Catholic home, Jim had no choice but to embrace that way of life. It permeated every aspect of his life, from school, where he attended a Roman Catholic school, to how Sundays were spent with their weekly attendance to church. At that early age, Jim's grasp on his faith was already solid, and everybody expected it to remain so, except it didn't. During his teenage years, Jim's family faced financial hardships, which led to a shift in their religious practices. But that was just the beginning. Despite the challenges, Jim's early experiences in the church played a significant role in shaping his moral compass and understanding of right and wrong. The older he got and the more involved in comedy he became, the more open he became to other views. It is true that the influence of Jim's family on his religious upbringing, coupled with his mother's faith and dedication to Catholicism, provided him with a strong foundation. But however, the challenges they faced also prompted Jim to question the doctrines and practices he had been taught. He started having interest in Buddhism, Hinduism, and even New Age spirituality, firstly out of curiosity before it eventually developed into a need to understand spirituality and faith. As a teenager exploring various religions, Jim was asked by an acquaintance to explain to him what happens when we die. Jim, who was freshly into Buddhism and Hinduism at the time, told the man that when he died, he would become part of a tree. Like all good Eastern mystics, Jim believed that humanity's ultimate goal was to dissolve into the everything of the universe. This popular doctrine is called monism. It means that everything, birds, trees, rocks, and people, is ultimately one thing. Buddhism and most forms of Hinduism emphasize this oneness, although Buddhists typically believe the oneness to be emptiness, while Hindus think it's God. In an interview with Canadian radio host Tom Power, Jim couldn't help but push the gospel of Buddha by claiming that all human individuality is false, all in a bid to showcase his newly found religion. During the interview, Carrey persisted in sharing the Buddhist and eventually ended up contradicting both himself and his message countless times. When asked who the real Jim was, Jim iterated that there was no real Jim. His identity was only an idea or abstract construction. Jim even went so far to say that sometimes he can coalesce with his coffee table during enlightenment, and he was infinitely everywhere and one with everything. But Buddhism aside, Jim also seemed to be serious regarding his dive into his monism. There's more. In monism, only one supreme being exists, which may be conceived of as a type of God. Although different people, animals, and objects exist, monists would argue that these individuals are all part of the same basic whole, which might be called God, the universe, nature, the source, the one, or something else. Different monists give different names to this supreme being or ultimate oneness, but the basic tenet of monism, shared by all monists, is that everything is really only one thing. As strange as the belief appears to be, Jim was a strong advocate for it. He acted like he had seen a kind of transformation after wrestling with depression, and therefore he was moved to use art as a creative outlet. And the notion that reality is an illusion appears to be a form of therapy for him as well. Reading authors like Eckhart Tolle and Jiddu Krishnamurti helped him become mindful and self-aware, giving his newly found views a boost. And we all know how crucial self-awareness is to a clean conscience. The need to know more will increase. According to Jim claims, his spiritual life took center stage in the last few years of the late 1990s and early 2000s. By this time, he had gotten a taste of fame and fortune, so it's natural that he'd be seeking fulfillment elsewhere. By practicing mindfulness in alignment with the new thought movement's visualization concept, Jim was able to craft the life of his dreams. At the height of his career, he wrote himself a check for $10 million, post-dated it for Thanksgiving 1995, then kept it in his wallet as a constant reminder of who he wanted to become. This wasn't an act of greed, but a sign of commitment towards achieving success on all fronts. Coupled with his successes, the actor also has a past full of philanthropic work, which once again seems to echo teachings from Jesus, unlike his monism beliefs. Throughout many different interviews, Jim has lifted the curtain on his current religious beliefs, admitting that things had happened to him, and he was no longer aware of who he was. In every single one of them, there seems to be an understanding that there just isn't a correct answer for everything. From the time of the production of Ace Ventura till now, Jim has always been in search of truth but never seemed to find exactly what he was looking for until recently. Nonetheless, there's no doubt in my mind that Jim has stumbled upon something great. But one thing of note is that in various interviews, Jim Carrey has also made thought-provoking statements regarding religion and spirituality. He has often expressed skepticism towards organized religion, advocating for a more personal and experiential approach to faith. Jim's candidness has sparked discussions about the nature of belief and the role of spirituality in contemporary society. His statements, however, resonate with many individuals who feel disconnected from traditional religious institutions and are seeking alternative paths to spiritual fulfillment. Jim has now become an advocate for mental health awareness, using his platform to encourage others to seek help and prioritize their well-being. In recent years, Jim has embraced a more holistic approach to spirituality, focusing on concepts such as love, compassion, and the pursuit of happiness. His journey reflects a shift away from rigid religious structures towards a more open and inclusive understanding of spirituality. He believes that spirituality can be a powerful ally in the journey towards healing and self-discovery. His views on spirituality are deeply personal and often expressed through his art. He has spoken about the importance of mindfulness, meditation, and self-awareness in fostering a meaningful life, and believes that true spirituality goes beyond religious labels and encourages individuals to seek their own truth. Though these lessons are not part of any particular religion, but present in all religions and worldview. Still, Jim Carrey's journey as an artist has also been affected by his personal beliefs. In movies like The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, people saw how he approached these philosophical ideas. The films may very well be reflections of Jim's personal interreligious dialogue. His journey is so personal that outsiders can't really comment on it, but one thing we know for sure, it's shaped him into who he is today. While he was raised in a Catholic household and has gone through the process of discovering new faiths and religions, Jim's current beliefs reflect a broader understanding of spirituality that transcends traditional religious boundaries. Jim Carrey's journey highlights the importance of personal exploration and self-development. So far, we have seen that Jim Carrey has had a very interesting journey from Catholicism to monism down to Christianity. Do you think he will end up discovering a new faith? Or will he stick with this one? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the next video on your screen. You will enjoy it.